here to you today as an engineer and also as an educator of engineers. But I have to start with a confession. My first year in college, I didn't get very good grades. And the reason I want to tell you this is because a lot of my experience is very consistent with what research says about women who are engineering majors and women who go to work in engineering. And so I'm going to talk to you today about research that has been done on thousands of women engineers and how my life tends to parallel that. Let's start off with middle school. We know that girls and boys do about the same in science and math. We know that already. But it turns out that in the general population, middle school girls and high school girls start losing interest in STEM careers. And so there are all kinds of programs in place to help these kids, including girls, get more interested in these careers. We just saw an example of one with the robotics team here, but we've got some examples also at the University of Mississippi where we bring middle school and high school girls to summer camps where they can tour chemical companies and they can make concrete cylinders that can withstand the weight of 6 cars. So they're getting a lot of hands-on experience. And so we've been doing a lot of programs for that. Now, we're seeing some positive news coming out of all these programs. If we look just at the enrollment of women in STEM at the University of Mississippi, we can see that it has tripled, although the values are gone now and they're substituted by the word value. I don't know what happened. But they did triple, okay, since 2009. At the graduate level, we do see it stayed flat, so we know that's something that we need to work on. But it's really great news that we're seeing the numbers increase. So going back to my story of all my bad grades that first year in college, research says that students, and especially women, in STEM fields in college, decide to change majors once they figure out they're not getting the grades they expect. And that is almost what I did. But I didn't. So my story is that I found that there were primarily 2 reasons why I stayed in engineering. Number 1, I realized that engineering can do good in the world. Number 2, I had the support mechanism. I went out and looked for tutoring. I had friends who helped me with homework and who respected my ideas on their homework problems too. I had faculty and staff in engineering who genuinely cared about how well we did. And with all those things together, I was able to stay in engineering, and my grades did get a lot better. And I became a professor, so there. Now, let me ask you guys a couple questions. How many of you here work for an organization or a company and you're always on the lookout for good, dynamic new hires? Anybody looking for employees? I mean, if you work for a company, any location, you're always looking out for good people, right? All right, how many of you here are not employed, but know you're going to be, and you're going to be looking for jobs in the future? I look at you. All right, well, you should all kind of wave to each other and then network during the reception later. But what I want to say here about this is that I am talking to both of these groups here. It's very important for employees to do some things, and it's very important for the future employees to do others. So let's take a look here at one fact that is very damaging, in fact, to the profession of engineering in this country, and it's that engineering has one of the largest turnovers of professional fields. More people leave engineering than in fields of medicine and law and accounting. 40% of women engineers leave their career in engineering, 40%. And only 10% of men engineers do. So that's a difference. And it is a loss. Already we don't have enough engineers in this country, and we're losing a big percentage of women, and by the way, a big percentage of men too. And so let's think about some reasons why we would want to keep these people employed, other than that we just need bodies there. Well, think of it this way. If you're a company, a corporation that is developing a product, and that product is going to be used by a diverse population, well, then in order for your company to produce the most appropriately designed product, your team should be as diverse as the population that is going to consume or use that product. It just makes sense. And so, going back to my experience, I did get a job. I went to work, and you'll have to take my word for it, but this is me. In my first week at work after college, going through hazardous waste operator training. You can see my wave and my smiling eyes in there. I was happy at work. For what reasons? Same two reasons why I stayed in college and engineering. Number one, I was doing good in the world. I was cleaning up contaminated sites, making the air cleaner to breathe and the water cleaner to be consumed. Number two, I had a really good working environment. I really had a support system. I'd go to work every day knowing that I was going to make a difference, knowing that people were expecting me to be there at the top of my game, and I was making a difference. So those two things kept me going. As it turns out, those are two things that research says keeps women in engineering. Now, think about it. Men would stay in engineering for the very same reasons, right? I mean, everybody wants to do some good, and everybody wants to have a really good working environment. But let me talk about a main difference between men and women. Women give birth, right? And so this is mine. He's now 15. But this is him when he was about 1. And I want to share with you an experience about having that great supportive work environment. After my maternity leave, I was able to negotiate with my company to come back and work part-time. The company was very healthy. It had some new hires. It had a lot of good people who could take over my projects and leaving me with just a few projects, so I could just work a couple of days a week. Well, it's very hard to find daycare for very young babies. And we were kind of in the bind at the time, my husband and I. And my husband had the fortune to have this very unique situation. He, an engineer himself, negotiated with his company to work part-time. What happened there is that his company, unlike mine, was a startup company on venture capital that was struggling. They were happy to pay my husband a partial salary for a little while, and he was able to stay home. He and I alternated work days, and that way one of us was always home with our son. We did that for several months until it was time for my husband to go back full-time and work some more. But that worked really well for our family. And the great conclusion here is that you have two very different kinds of companies, and they both were not just willing to let us go part-time, but very happy to do so. So back to women in engineering. What can keep them there? Primarily, it's just a supportive climate, okay? Good working environment. What does it do? A climate that invests in professional development, not just for entry-level people, but everybody up and down the career ladder, especially managers who need to learn. Maybe they're technically educated, but they need to learn how to manage a diverse workforce. Also, a place that offers equal opportunity on assignments and work tasks, regardless of gender. Finally, a place that maintains a culture of respect. There should be no tolerance for incivility. And then finally, a place that respects that every individual has a work life and a life outside of work. Now, those are things that men and women can be behind, right? And so, what I want to say here is that as we move forward, there are two messages I want to send. Companies, employers, these are the things that keep your people in engineering. Those 40% of women who leave engineering, they leave because they don't find these working conditions. That is the primary reason why they leave. For those of you who are going to be employed someday, you can be a part of this. You should expect excellent working conditions. You should also contribute to those working conditions. Now, the future workforce is very diverse. This is one of my classes. We're out taking a tour of a wastewater treatment plant. The future is very diverse, and this is something that I try to tell to my own students. It does depend on you to find a good place to work and to maintain your own work environment very good. It also depends on companies. Now, for companies, I know that those excellent working conditions sometimes are hard to achieve. It takes a lot of initial investment. But if you have the goodwill of your employees and they know that you're trying your best, usually you can work things through and create a successful environment. So I urge employers to be intentional and deliberate in providing an excellent working environment so your workforce can thrive. And I urge these future employees to be a part of that and take ownership in creating a great working environment for everybody. Thank you for listening.